Are you a big fan of heist flicks? Well, today I'm going to be talking about my favorite heist films of all time on physical media. So let's rock this. Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Fuzz. So today I want to talk about one of my favorite action subgenres, the heist flick. I absolutely love heist flicks. They are so much fun. It seems like no matter how many times we see the standard stock heist film formula redone or reimagined for a new film, I never seem to get tired of these films. I love them. I always have a blast with them. Even if they're kind of predictable, I still have a blast with them. So today I'm going to be ranking my top 10 favorite heist films of all time on Blu-ray and 4K disc. Now I want to note that I'll be going a little bit outside of the usual channel parameters that I've kind of established. And when I say that, I mean I'm mainly referencing the decades from which I'm choosing these films. Most of the time, the films I discuss on this channel were released during the 70s, 80s, or 90s. But there are so many great heist films that I personally love that came out after the 90s that I wanted to be able to highlight those great films as well. And since the great thing about having your own channel is that you can make and break your own rules, I figured why not? I'll go for it. Basically, I did not want to have to limit myself with this particular subgenre and not be able to talk about films that I love. But before I get in my list, I want to talk a little bit about some of the key elements I think make up a good heist film. In other words, in my view, all of the best heist films out there usually have some or all of these key elements. The first thing that I think is important to any heist film is having strong characters that you feel invested in and actually care about, especially the characters that comprise the criminal element in the film, right? I've found that some of the best heist films out there tend to blur the lines between protagonist and antagonist. And it's not always clear who the good guys are and who the bad guys are, right? So the best heist films are those that set up a situation where you actually feel something toward the person committing the heist and you want them to actually succeed and get away with it, right? Let's face it, it can be an absolute blast rooting for the bad guy in these heist films, can it? The second key element that I think any good heist film should have is a substantial amount of time dedicated to the planning of the heist, right? As well as an understanding of what the stakes are. Meaning the place you're breaking into has these very strong security measures, maybe really advanced technology to keep people from breaking in. It's always fun learning about just how challenging the heist in question is actually going to be and what the main characters' plans are for overcoming the obstacles they face and pulling off this heist. And of course, every good heist film will also have a strong law enforcement component to it. The hardcore, dedicated cop who maybe has a hard time keeping a marriage together, but he's on the case 24/7 and trying to nail his guy. So yeah, every good heist film is going to have a nice cat and mouse element between the police and the criminal element. And let's not forget that no heist film is complete without a nice big payoff, right? We're not talking just a couple $1,000s here. That wouldn't even be worth making a movie out of. The payoff is always going to be really big, right? Whether it be in cash or gold or diamonds, it's not going to be just a measly few $1,000s. It's going to be like, millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars, something big like that. The stakes have to be really high in these heist films in order for us to really feel the investment in the story, right? And of course, like I said, we often want the person committing the heist to be able to get away with it, to be able to hit that big payday, right? So yeah, you always got to have a big payoff with these films. And the last element that I think we see a lot with many heist films is the one last job scenario, right? Where the guy is maybe looking to get out of the business, but he's got to pull off one more job before he can be done and go retire. And of course, that ties into the big payoffs. Usually these one last job scenarios involve a very big payoff. And this scenario actually creates a certain amount of sympathy for the heister, right? So it amps up the emotional investment in the character. If you feel like, okay, well, this guy's been doing heists his whole life, but now he's actually trying to get out, you almost want them to succeed. You want them to be able to get away with it. So let's go ahead and get into the top 10 list. And I will remind everyone I'm doing my honorable mentions at the end of the list, not at the beginning. That's just how I roll. And I've actually got quite a few honorable mentions this time, probably almost as many as my top 10 list. So stick around for my honorable mentions because I've got some great titles in that batch as well. Starting off at number 10, we have 1999's Entrapment, starring Sean Connery and Catherine Zeta-Jones. This is a great film, a lot of fun. Sean Connery plays an art thief in this film, so it's all about stealing valuable paintings. And Catherine Zeta-Jones plays the insurance investigator who is on his tail. The planning aspects of the heist in this film are a lot of fun to watch as they figure out how they're going to pull this off. So if you haven't seen Entrapment, I highly recommend it. It was kind of under the radar a little bit. It's a film that I don't know how many people remember it from the 90s, but it's one of those ones that was on cable TV quite a bit when it first came out, and I used to watch it all the time. So I love this film. So yeah, check it out, Entrapment. For my number 9, I chose 2004's National Treasure, starring Nicolas Cage. And boy, does this have an amazing cast, right? You got Nicolas Cage, Jon Voight, Harvey Keitel, Diane Kruger, Christopher Plummer's in this, Sean Bean. I mean, really an all-star cast. And I'm not even a big fan of Disney, but I really like this film. I thought this was a fantastic heist film. And what makes this film so unique is the nature of the heist itself. They're actually trying to steal the Declaration of Independence. So you can imagine the kind of security they have around that thing and what kind of obstacles they would encounter trying to pull this heist off, right? So it's really just a lot of fun. It's almost kind of a family film to a certain extent, but it is action-packed and it's got everything that you would want from a good heist film, I think. So yeah, National Treasure at number 9. Moving on to my number 8, I chose Gone in 60 Seconds. Nicolas Cage. This came out in 2000. This is a great heist flick about boosting cars and boosting a lot of cars. So this is just a fun ride all the way around, and it's got a great cast again. You got Nicolas Cage, you got Will Patton, you got Angelina Jolie, Delroy Lindo is in this. So yeah, this is a lot of fun. And one of my favorite things about this is the villain. The bad guy in this is hilarious. He is such a cheeseball. And he's got a number of cheesy little one-liners that are just cringe-inducing. But you can't help but be amused. But yeah, this is a great action-packed film. I would love to see this released on 4K at some point. But sadly, it's a Touchstone Pictures release, so it's not clear if that is ever going to happen. So for now, I'll just have to be satisfied with my Blu-ray. But if you've never seen this one, it's a lot of fun and just a total blast. For my number 7 choice, I'm going a little bit more contemporary with 2011's Fast 5. I just love this franchise, the Fast and Furious franchise. It's a whole lot of fun. I realize it's totally absurd and ridiculous and unrealistic, but you know, these are great turn off your brain type films. And I realize that some of you may not be expecting a really good heist film out of a Fast and Furious movie, but trust me, Fast 5 absolutely delivers in this regard. Yes, the stunts are totally over the top and defy the laws of physics, as you would expect, but somehow it all just works with Fast 5. I also want to mention these films look incredible on 4K. Well, first of all, they've all got DTS:X audio tracks, which I personally tend to like more than Dolby Atmos. But the picture quality on this is also just fantastic. So yeah, check these out if you never have. And moving on to my number 6, we have Mission Impossible from 1996 and directed by the great Brian De Palma, whom I love. This is another great heist film, or at least I should say, well, it's a government agent film with a strong heist element. Tom Cruise actually gets to break into a vault at CIA headquarters in this film. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of high-tech obstacles to overcome in order to pull this off. So it's thoroughly entertaining. And this is a great 4K restoration, like all the Mission Impossible films. In fact, I'd recommend getting them all on 4K. And admittedly, the later Mission Impossible films actually look even better than this one does. But this is a very solid restoration for a film that came out in 1996. So if you've never picked these up on 4K, I highly recommend it. They are definitely must-own titles on 4K for any fan of this franchise. Okay, this next one might be a little bit controversial, but for my number 5, I chose the 2003 remake of The Italian Job. I love this film. I think it's a lot of fun. Now, I gotta say, I've never seen the original, all right, which came out in what, the late 60s? I've never seen the original Italian Job, so if you want to set me on fire in the comments, go for it. I'm a big boy, I can handle it. I do eventually plan to get around to seeing the original Italian Job, but I've always loved this version. I've always thought this was a great film. It's got a great cast with Edward Norton and Mark Wahlberg, Donald Sutherland, Charlize Theron, Jason Statham, Seth Green. A lot of good people in this, and it's just a fun ride all the way around. You got Mini Coopers. I mean, what's not to love about Mini Coopers? And there's some good twists in this film. I know it's probably not as good as the original, but I dig it. So it's on my list. Number 5, The Italian Job. Coming in at number 4, we have a true classic here in 1981's Thief, directed by Michael Mann. I believe this was actually Michael Mann's first feature film, and you can definitely see the connective tissue between this film and Heat, which he would do, 14, 15 years later. But this is an incredible film in terms of a character study. This is a tour de force for James Caan. It really is, I think, one of his best films. It's just oozing with atmosphere and mood, and the colors in this film are just incredibly striking. This is the Criterion Blu-ray. I think I heard Criterion is either put out a 4K of this or is going to put out a 4K of this. They may have already done it a long time ago. So I never got around to picking up the 4K if it is out. I figured I was good with Blu-ray. But even the Criterion Blu-ray looks stunning. So it does have a little bit of a darker edge to it. It's definitely got a certain intensity that you would expect to see with a James Caan film. So it's just a really well done thief heist type film. Pretty much every key element that makes a good heist film is in play in this film, including the one last job scenario. So if you've never seen this awesome 1981 classic, I'd highly recommend it. So Thief at number 4. By the way, if you're enjoying this content, please do me a huge favor and subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you can be alerted when I'm posting cool stuff that you want to see. And don't forget to like the video as well. I really appreciate your support, so thanks a lot. And coming in at my number 3, we have Ben Affleck's The Town from 2010. I absolutely love this film, and I was so excited when it first came out. Now, there's a reason I don't own it on 4K. There is a 4K disc available of this film, but I prefer the extended cut, and the extended cut is not available on the 4K disc. You only get it on a separate standard Blu-ray. It's almost a half an hour longer than the theatrical cut, and it's just got so much more depth and substance to it. This film has a great cast, Ben Affleck, like I said, but also Jeremy Renner, Blake Lively's in this, Chris Cooper, and Ben Affleck did an amazing job with this. In fact, I would suggest this is the single best film that Ben Affleck has ever directed. There's just a lot to this. There's a lot of layers to this film. There's some great mood and atmosphere. This, to me, has everything you could possibly want in a good heist film. It's all here. So if you've never seen this one, I'd highly recommend it. Check it out. And at my number 2, we have 2001's The Score, starring Robert De Niro and Edward Norton. This is a killer film. This is one of those ones that I can rewatch over and over and over again and never seem to get sick of. You know, it's not a fast-paced action film. It's somewhat subdued, but it has a great vibe to it, and it's got everything that you'd want in a heist film, like some of these other ones I mentioned. The cast is amazing. You not only have Edward Norton and Robert De Niro, but you also have Marlon Brando in what I believe was his last role before he died. So, and he does a great job with this as well. So the acting in this film is top-notch. The story is well done. The heist planning is exactly what you'd hope for. You get to see a little bit of everything. You get to see the stakes. You get to see how they plan the heist. And then you get to see the twists that come while the heist is being executed. This is also a great 4K release too. So if you're a big fan of heist films and collecting them on 4K, this is one you're definitely going to want to pick up. The restoration looks great. The film looks the best I've ever seen it on 4K. So yeah, if you haven't picked this one up yet and you're a big fan of heist films, I'd highly recommend The Score on 4K. And for my number one, of course, we have 1995's Heat on 4K. Pardon the reflection there on this steelbook. Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, classic film now. I actually saw this in the theaters when it first came out, and it made an impact on me even back then. But I had no idea it was going to go on to become the classic that it has and be so highly revered among fans of the genre. But it's like the ultimate, not just heist film, it's like the ultimate cops and robbers flick. You've also got a great supporting cast on this. Val Kilmer, Tom Sizemore, John Voight, William Fichtner. Some great actors in this, great casting in this, incredible story. This is actually not just my favorite heist film, but it's actually one of my all-time favorite films overall, like in my top 5 all-time favorite films. I've always been a huge fan of this film. Pacino and De Niro just give, career-defining performances in this film, as far as I'm concerned. Now, some people did complain a little bit about the 4K on this one, saying it looked a little too dark. My take on it, I think it looks the way Michael Mann intended it to look. I didn't have a problem with the 4K on this. Yeah, some people might need to bump up the brightness and contrast on their TV a couple notches to be satisfied with the image. But really, I think this got a bad rap from a lot of people for being too dark. It looks the way Michael Mann wanted it to look. And I think this probably looks, to my eyes, closer to what I remember seeing in the original theater than what we got released on previous Blu-rays of this title. So yeah, my all-time favorite heist film, number one for me, is Heat. And next I'm going to move on to some honorable mentions, which I feel are really important for this particular genre, because I had such a hard time narrowing this list down to just 10. There are just so many great heist films out there that I love, and I am such a huge fan of the genre that I definitely wanted to take advantage of the honorable mentions to talk about some of my other favorites in the genre. My first honorable mention is a film called simply Heist. It was released in 2001, and it stars Gene Hackman, Delroy Lindo, Danny DeVito, and I think Sam Rockwell is in this one as well. It's a really good film. The mood is more kind of like The Score. It's not a really fast-paced film. It's a little more subdued and kind of takes its time moving through the story. But it is a very compelling story, and it's got some great twists in it towards the end. Actually, it's worth noting, I think this film may be out of print on Blu-ray, but I did notice that it's still out there on the secondary market on eBay. I think Blu-ray copies were going for like $25, $30 or more. But you can still get the film. But I definitely plan on getting this on Blu-ray soon myself. I have a digital copy of the film, but that, of course, isn't going to quite cut it. And this is a film that, I'm a big enough fan of that it's a must-own for my heist collection. So if you've never seen Heist from 2001, check it out. And a more recent title would be Ambulance from 2022. Just came out last year. Really fun Michael Bay movie. You get all your explosions and flipping cars and everything that you would expect from a great Michael Bay movie, but it's also it's a heist flick too. Stars Jake Gyllenhaal. By the way, this is a fantastic looking 4K. It really is stunning, and the audio is incredible on this as well. So yeah, if you've never seen Ambulance, it's kind of like a throwback to the classic action flicks of the 90s. So check it out. I also want to mention Sneakers from 1992, another fun heist film that has a great cast. Robert Redford, who I'm a big fan of, and Sidney Poitier is in this, River Phoenix, Dan Aykroyd, Ben Kingsley. This is just a great cast and a really fun film. It's a little bit more lighter-hearted than maybe some of the other films on this list. But if you've never checked it out, it really is a good film. And this next film is probably not strictly a heist film. It's more of a long con film. But it is my favorite Quentin Tarantino film, so I had to at least mention it. Jackie Brown from 1997. This is such an awesome film. I like it better than Pulp Fiction. Now, like I said, it's not strictly a heist film, but it does have a lot of key elements that we look for in heist films. And it's just a great cast all the way around. Samuel L. Jackson, Robert De Niro, Michael Keaton, Pam Grier, Robert Forster, all-star cast. So yeah, Jackie Brown is a great kind of long con heist film that I think kind of deserves to be mentioned with these other films. I'm going to a real old one here, going back into the 70s for the first time on this list, and that is for the Hot Rock, 1972. Now, this one kind of goes outside of the genres that I usually cover on this channel. This is almost kind of a comedy. I mean, it's amusing. It's definitely a full-on heist film. We're dealing with diamonds here, right? But it doesn't play like an action film at all. It definitely takes a much lighter approach to the heist film than the other films on this list. But it is a classic. Twilight Time put this out. There were only 3,000 copies produced on Blu-ray, but I believe you can still get it out there. So keep your eyes out. It's an old classic, and that's why it's on the list. And then just a couple others I wanted to mention that I don't actually own on physical media, but I do intend to pick up in the near future. The first one is from 2006, and it's Denzel Washington in Inside Man. Such a great film, Spike Lee joint, and it's one of my favorite Spike Lee films, honestly. I love the way they kind of took the heist film and kind of turned it on its side a little bit. Inside Man probably has the most unique take on the heist film and escaping and all that I've ever seen in a heist film. I've never seen that particular story or twist that they do in this film in any other heist film. So I really enjoyed that one, and it is one I definitely have to pick up on physical pretty soon. And then, of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention Dog Day Afternoon from 1975. Big Al Pacino fan here, so I've always loved that movie. That's another one that I don't think fits really into as an action subgenre type film. It's more of a drama. It's got some lighter-hearted moments to it, but it's kind of a trippy film. Dog Day Afternoon is an absolute classic, so if you've never seen it, I'd strongly recommend checking it out. I think I'm hoping that it comes to 4K at some point, but you can get it on Blu-ray as of right now. So yeah, Dog Day Afternoon, my final honorable mention, and a great film to check out if you've never seen it. So that about wraps it up for my favorite heist films of all time on physical media. I hope you enjoyed the video and maybe even got a few recommendations that you can pursue. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.